everyone, and welcome to this special NFL Week 1 edition of the Odds On Favorites podcast. We're breaking down all 16 of this week's NFL opening games. I'm Drew Goldfarb, joined by Rockwell and Taylor Smith. We're going to be going through every single one of these games based on their start time. We're going to begin with the Thursday night game. It's the Chicago Bears hosting the Green Bay Packers in prime time to open up the 2019 season. The Bears favored by a field goal on the spread. Rick, which team will pick up the Week 1 win?
You know, this one's going to be a little bit tougher because it's a divisional game. And Green Bay, has owned this rivalry over the last decade pretty much. But with that said, there's a lot more question marks about Green Bay heading into this season than there is the Bears. The Bears have actually, they're looking like an NFC champion contender right now. They got arguably the best defense in the NFL. Then they added an electric rookie running back who should help improve the running game. Even though Jordan Howard did well last year, he seemed to lack a dynamic that this offense wanted, a faster pace or a more athletic running game outside of Tariq Cohen, who is like a little video game character when he gets on the field. But Montgomery's going to be a stud. Trubisky's in, his third year now. He's playing better. The offensive line's improved. They got good receivers. They got weapons all around for him. And that defense is going to give him the ball back. What's that? Oh, I thought I heard something. I'm getting feedback or something on my end. So with that,
playing a video or something, he's got that smile on his face like he just opened a page and had like a pop-up ad or something.
Oh, I don't want to know what he's looking at. So with that said, I'm going with the Bears. I think they're going to win. I would like to have the spread under 3. I would be more I would feel a little bit better about that. But, at the very least, I think it'll be a minimum of push on the spread. Outright picking the Bears to win. They're at home. They got a lot of things going for them. Green Bay does not. Green Bay still has question marks on defense, question marks on the offensive line. Will the receivers play better than last year? And is somebody going to find a running game on a consistent basis for the Packers? And last but not least, they got a new head coach, a new system. Come on now. You got to go with the Bears.
Yeah, I'm kind of bearish on the Bears in general this season, more so than maybe some other people are. But I do like them tomorrow night or tonight, Thursday night. They're at home. They have the better defense. Like Rick was saying, the Packers just have way more question marks up and down the roster. First game for a new head coach. They do have Aaron Rodgers, which gives them the best player on the field, arguably. But, that can only go so far. It hasn't really worked out for them the last couple of years. I think the Bears will get revenge for their opening day loss against the Packers last year, so I'm taking Chicago at home.
I'm going to make it unanimous. I think the Bears are the team that's going to come away with the win in this one. The new head coach is a big question mark for Green Bay. I agree. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL still. Mitch Trubisky has been fantastic for the Chicago Bears. I think that he's a really good piece, but it's a Bears team. That defense is great. And I agree with Rick. I think the Bears are one of the Super Bowl contenders out of the NFC. I really think that they are going to be right in the mix of things deep into the postseason. So I do think that the Bears pick up the win. Green Bay might return the favor when these teams play at Lambeau Field, however many weeks down the line. But Week 1, brand new head coach, a team that wasn't that great last year against the Bears. I'm taking the Bears. Let's move on to the Sunday games. We start with the early contest. 7 of these games, we're going to go from the game with the smallest spread to the game with the largest spread. Reigning NFC champion Los Angeles Rams open up the season on the road. They're visiting Cam Newton and the Carolina Panthers. The Rams are favored by 3 points for this one. Taylor, who you got?
I'm pretty into the Panthers in the long term this season. I think they kind of have a sleeper Super Bowl potential kind of thing going on. I'm going to take them here. The Rams going across country all the way to Charlotte. Carolina doesn't really have any obvious weak spots. They don't really have a go-to number 1 stud receiver. But DJ Moore was quietly really good last year as a rookie. Curtis Samuel's fine. Greg Olson's one of the better tight ends in the league still. The defense just has tons of talent. Cam Newton's fully healthy. As we mentioned a few weeks ago, this team was, I think, 6-2 last year before he got hurt. So, that's obviously a huge deal. The Rams, I think, have more question marks as well, Todd Gurley being one of them. The offense should be fine. I expect they'll still win their division kind of by default, but going on the road to Carolina is tough. So I'm going to, I think, take a contrarian stance here and take the Panthers.
Wow. Yeah, I'm thinking about it. Other than Cleveland and the Raiders, is there another team that has more pressure on them going into week one than the Rams? Everybody wants to know what's going on with Todd Gurley, especially us fantasy owners who have Gurley on our team. With that said, I also have Saquon Barkley and Chris Carson, so I'm not as worried as some may be. For this game, though, like Taylor just said, West Coast to East Coast, that's not an easy thing to do. However, they've had plenty of time to prepare for this game. Carolina, though, they are solid. Adding Burns to the defensive line rotation is going to make them better. They're healthy. Luke should be doing well this year. He should be back to full strength, full health. They added some weapons and receivers. They got 1 year better. Newton, they were worried about him with the injury in the preseason. He's ready to go. A lot of things are pointing to Carolina. A lot more questions with the Rams. How's their defense going to look? Matthews is over there now. They got rid of some pieces. They brought in some pieces. Are they going to gel? But it all comes down to Todd Gurley. Not only that, he's going to go up against a great defense, especially when they play at home. Over the years, Carolina has been a top 10 defense. I can't even remember a year when they weren't a top 10 defense, to be honest. With that said, I still have a hard time picking against the Rams. I'm going to take the Rams for one reason only. Their kicker, Greg Zuerlein.
You're picking a team because – okay, so a 3-point spread then, you're basically just assuming that is going to be a push. If you're picking –
No, I think it'll be close. There might be a point or two ahead, and then at the end, they're going to, seal the deal with the game. Carolina might get the ball and drive, having to score a touchdown to win, but it's going to be that last field goal. Zuerlein's going to have 4 field goals that game, and he's going to end up winning it for them. Legatron.
I was leaning towards the Rams anyway, and I can't argue with a kicker. That's so I'm going to stick with LA for that pick. I do have to bring up Greg Olsen as someone who's had him in my dynasty fantasy football league since he was a rookie. The health concerns are obviously there. Even week one, even if he's not listed, he's missed so much time. You never know what drive he might end up leaving a game on. So that would be my one thing, my one hesitation. I still think that the Rams are going to be a strong team this year. I'm not as high on them as I would have been like midway through last season. Certainly, I do think that Chicago's up there, as we just talked about. But, I think in this game, I wouldn't go against someone who says that they think the Panthers are going to rebound this year and that their first half with Cam Newton was their true form. I want to see something first before I'd be willing to kind of start wagering on that. Also a 3-point favorite, the New York Jets host Rick's favorite pick to run the table basically this season, the Buffalo Bills. To get this one out of the way, Rick, we're going to start with you. Why will Buffalo win at MetLife Stadium this week?
Oh, my goodness, a 3-point. Come on now. How many games were the Jets a favorite last year? Seriously? New head coach, new players on both sides of the ball. Question marks at the offensive line. They got skilled players. Le'Veon Bell is going to be a stud again. However, it might take him a little bit of time to get going since he didn't play at all last year. Buffalo's coming in. They added pieces on both sides of the ball as well. They had one of the top defenses last year. The defense looks even better this year. They went undefeated in the preseason, first time in the history of their franchise, which I know for the most part preseason doesn't matter. However, for a team that's trying to build consistency and chemistry, winning does help. Young quarterback, winning does help. Young players in key positions, winning does help. Success helps with that. Success breeds confidence in a way, especially with young players. So with that said, not only is Buffalo going to cover this spread, they're going to win the game outright. Darnold is just as interception prone as Josh Allen is. I don't trust the Jets defense yet. We'll see how they handle the running game. Last year, Matt Barkley came in off the street and destroyed the Jets at their home. Although he's not starting this week, I still believe Buffalo go in there. They'll win. I'm predicting a score 27-24 Buffalo.
That's a little more high scoring than I would have taken, but I don't mind either of these teams. I do think they're both definitely improved. I'm kind of wary of going in on a team like the Jets that kind of spend a lot of money in the offseason. Those kind of teams tend to falter and just underwhelm. I'd also like to point out, I think the 2008 Lions also went undefeated in the preseason and then proceeded to go 0-16. So there's some nice precedent for you. But I like the Jets here. I'm taking New York against Rick's pick here. The Jets just seem to be kind of more solid in general on both sides of the ball. I think Sam Darnold's definitely a better quarterback than Josh Allen at this point of their respective careers. He's got better accuracy. They are both turnover prone, but that's pretty much true for every young quarterback. Like you said, Le'Veon Bell, I think it's going to give this offense more balance than it had a year ago. Buffalo on the road, I just don't think will be able to score enough points to keep up in this game. I think it'll be ugly. I think it'll be low scoring, but I'll take the Jets.
Yeah, I wouldn't touch the spread on this game just because you never know. It could be 10-9. It could be 3-2. You never know with these two teams. I'm also going to take the Jets on this one. Part of me just really wanted to see Rick's face when I said that. I didn't realize Taylor was also going to be picking the Jets, but his reaction didn't disappoint, trying to hold it in. Sam Darnold is a solid quarterback. I think that adding Le'Veon Bell allows him to be better. I think that is going to be a big thing with trying to cut down his interceptions, cutting down the turnovers for the Jets offense, is having a running back like Bell means that they can't just focus on trying to shut down Darnold. I don't know that I'm going to be picking the Jets at any other point this season, but week 1 against Buffalo seemed reasonable enough. Maybe against the Dolphins. I'll probably pick the Jets against my Dolphins at some point during the season, so we'll see how that happens. Kansas City Chiefs nearly made it to the Super Bowl last season. This year, they open on the road against the retooled Jacksonville Jaguars. KC favored by 3.5 points on the road. So, Rick, are you taking Andy Reid's team to spoil Nick Foles' Jags debut?
I like Foles. I'm actually a fan of his. I like his resiliency. I like his confidence. I like a lot of things about him as a leader, as a quarterback, but I do not like Jacksonville this week versus the Chiefs. I don't care if they're playing in Jacksonville. I don't care if they're playing in their second home of London. The Chiefs are a better team. They added players on defense to make the defense better. That offense is going to put up 30 points this weekend, even against a really good Jaguars defense. There's so much speed. Adding LaShawn McCoy just gives them more depth at the running back position. Not just depth, though, but leadership there. Because Damian Williams, there wasn't a lot of confidence in him to make it the whole season. They have rookies and young players behind him. Adding McCoy adds a veteran player with the experience in that offense, with a good relationship with the head coach, with playoff, like everything you need to help an offense, LaShawn McCoy brings. Too many weapons, too much speed, too much offense. Kansas City wins. I wouldn't be surprised if they won by a touchdown or more.
Yeah, I think Jacksonville and Houston are your AFC South playoff competitors, but it's hard to pick against the Chiefs even on the road. I think this is your Super Bowl team out of the AFC this year. Like Rick was saying, too much speed, too much star power. Tyreek Hill's there. LaShawn McCoy's now there, complementing the others in the backfield. So it'll be fun to see that defense against that offense, but I would still give the edge to Pat Mahomes and the Chiefs.
I'm making it unanimous on this one. Yeah, Kansas City to win this game. I like them as well as a team that at the very least is going to get to a conference championship. I think that when you're talking AFC Super Bowl contenders, you're usually talking in addition to the New England Patriots, because the New England Patriots are always Super Bowl contenders, unfortunately or fortunately, depending on your allegiance. So the Chiefs, though, I really like them this year. I think that they're going to be hungry after the way that last season ended, especially that offense, just to kind of get there and put a team away immediately right off the bat. I would think that they should be able to cover this. I'm excited to see what Foles does, because I do like Nick Foles too. Loved watching him in Philadelphia, and to see what he might be able to do now that there isn't someone technically ahead of him on the depth chart while he's playing. He is the guy in Jacksonville. So it'll be interesting to see what he does, but I don't think he's starting off his Jags tenure with a win. I think Kansas City picks up the win, and I would think they would cover as well, maybe by even closer to 7 points in this game. Next game could be a playoff preview in the NFC. The Minnesota Vikings host the Atlanta Falcons. I know we're 17 weeks away from talking playoffs, but those two teams would be at near the top of everyone's list, I think, when it comes to playoff contenders. Minnesota favored by 4 points for week 1. Taylor, which side are you taking just straight up to win?
This is probably one of the better games of the week. It's a tough one to pick. I like Minnesota right now. Stephon Diggs, I see, is questionable. Didn't practice with a hamstring injury the last couple of days, so that's a little bit concerning, obviously. They're going to need him if they plan to keep up with Atlanta, but I just think they're the better team top to bottom. The defense is much better than Atlanta's. Minnesota underperformed expectations last year. I expect them to bounce back, as we talked about in the NFC North preview. So it's kind of dicey on the road. Atlanta's a tough place to play, but I'll take Minnesota, assuming they're at full strength.
Where's the game at, Minnesota or Atlanta?
It's in Minnesota.
Oh, well, even better then.
Okay, yeah. I got to go with Taylor then. I think Minnesota win. I think it'll be a close game, though. Both good teams. Both are going to have really good offenses. Both teams are going to bounce back this year. Last year, they both underperformed. They had some injuries. They had some players that just did not live up to expectations. This year, I really like a healthy Cook in the backfield for Minnesota. Still got the passing weapons there for Cousins to throw to. Offensive line looked better in the preseason. Hopefully for them, that continues into the regular season. Defense should be top 5, at least top 10 defense in the league. Atlanta has questions on defense still. I like to see them play against top competition before I say, they're going to be a playoff team. They have the potential because of the offense. We'll see if they can get back up there and contend with the Panthers and the Saints in the NFC South. But for this week, you have to lean towards the Vikings at home in their opener with that crowd behind them. Atlanta hasn't been impressive on the road in the last couple seasons. Have to go Vikings here.
I agree with all of the logic behind those picks when it comes to Minnesota. It is a difficult building to play in as a visiting team. Both of these teams are trying to bounce back. I think I'm leaning towards Atlanta. I was back and forth on this one, and I really could kind of go either way. This one is a game where I'd probably rather just watch it than wager on it. But that Atlanta offense, I think, might end up being a difference. I'm more confident that they would be able to, at the very least, I know that Minnesota is going to slow them down, but Atlanta has enough where even slowed down, they should still be able to put up a little bit of points on the board. And I'm not as confident that the Vikings offense will rebound quite as quickly. And that's the only thing. I agree that Minnesota's got the better defense. I think Atlanta's got the better offense. That's going to be a great matchup to watch. And I think that Atlanta might be able to do just barely enough to come away with the win on this one. I'd be closer if I was going to bet on it. I'd take Atlanta with the points. But because I could see either team winning this game, but I'd rather just watch this. But I'm picking Atlanta. Someone's got to give credit to the Dirty Birds there. Nearly a 1-touchdown favorite, the Cleveland Browns, favored by 5 points against the Tennessee Titans in Week 1. Taylor, are you buying into a 1-0 start in Cleveland, or will Tennessee pick up the road victory and kind of already shut down all the Super Bowl expectations that Cleveland's got?
Yeah, I know we're all kind of hesitant to jump in on the Browns here, considering all the hype they're getting and people talking about Super Bowls and stuff. I think we're all pumping the brakes on that. But this week, I think they will get it done. It's just a good team up and down. Odell Beckham Jr., obviously a huge addition. Nick Chubb looked like a worthwhile number 1 back once he got the job like halfway through last year. So assuming Baker Mayfield doesn't have some kind of huge sophomore slump, I think they should be fine. Tennessee is a good defense, but the offense, once again, a massive question mark. Marcus Mariota, made of glass. He may well last 1 quarter. We have no idea, but I think Tennessee is okay, but I would take Cleveland here straight up.
Yeah, I'm not a fan. I'm not confident in Tennessee at all. Whether they're on the road or at home, it doesn't matter. I have a hard time having faith. Well, I'm a fan of Mariota ever since he played for Oregon. It just has not worked out well with Tennessee. He's had games where he's looked good. He's had games where he's looked terrible. I'm not confident in their receivers. Delaney Walker's back, though. That should help that offense some. He's still a legitimate option at tight end. I wouldn't say he's a dominant tight end anymore at this stage of his career, but he will help Mariota out. It's all going to come down to how well they run the ball, because from there, then it'll be play action. Defense should still be solid. But with that said, Cleveland has the potential to be the best team in the AFC North if they can play up to that potential. That defense looked good in the preseason. People are thinking or projecting them to be at least a top 15, if not a top 10 defense. The weapons on offense itself, that's what we're talking about here. But they're going to go up against a really physical defense right out of the gate. This is going to be a good test for Cleveland. I'm picking them to win the game. I don't know if they can cover the 5 points. I think it could be a low-scoring game because of the physicality that Tennessee plays with. But you got to go with Taylor's team, the Browns, at home. The dog pound's going to be rocking and rolling.
I think that this is going to extend the hype at least by a week or two. The Browns are going to win this game. They should be the better team in this case. And if they don't, then the hype train goes entirely the other way, I think. They're not only going to slam on the brakes, but throw it in a full-on reverse and go as far back as they can, trying for that 0-16 parade again. So I think Cleveland wins, though. Those pieces, those weapons coming out for game one, they've got with Beckham, with Chubb, with Mayfield. It's going to be interesting to see against a team that is, basically mathematically an average defense. So it'll be interesting to see what they do together. I think it's a good way to get them into things. I would still, again, pump the brakes when it comes to saying Cleveland to the Super Bowl or even to a division title. They're still playing the same division as Pittsburgh. But I think that they get a win in week one. You know, whether you'd want to bet on the spread or not, I'd probably just go money line with it. My Miami Dolphins have dealt away about 75 players from last year's roster. They now open the 2019 season as 6.5-point underdogs against the Baltimore Ravens, and they're basically fielding like a fourth-quarter preseason team at this point. Rick, any chance that you see my Fins picking up the win at home in week one? Because it's going to be 1 p.m. Eastern time. It's outdoors. It's going to be like 92 degrees. The humidity is going to be way up there. It's going to be brutal if the Ravens end up winning like 30-0 in this game.
You know, first of all, there is no chance Miami wins this game. It's going to be hard for them to even score any points. I'm a huge fan of Fitzmagic. I love Ryan Fitzpatrick. If anybody can pull something out of his backside, it's Fitzmagic. However, they have no talent on that team. They've gotten rid of their best players on both sides of the ball. I don't even know what they're doing in Miami. They say that they're still trying to be competitive. You look at that roster, what is competitive about that? Alabama can beat them. Clemson can beat them. Heck, even Auburn can beat them, and I don't even want to go into that game. With that said, there's no chance. You know, I am honestly surprised that the spread is under a touchdown. I think Baltimore is going to win by double digits. This is going to be a blowout. For the survivor pools, this is your lock of the week right here.
I think there was an early season game last year, like Minnesota-Buffalo, that was like a lock in survivor pools that went sideways for everyone back in Minnesota. So just a fair warning, this could be something like that. I guess odds makers are just kind of worried about Lamar Jackson and his ability to actually lead the offense to enough points to cover the spread. But, you know, Miami's going to say they're being competitive, but they're obviously not. They're clearly tanking. This is like the most shameless tanking job we've seen in the NFL. At least since the Jets last year or 2 years ago, was it? So, no, I don't think Miami's going to pull the upset.
I'm picking Baltimore because I've seen the rosters. I've seen what's happened. I've seen the trades that have been made. The only thing that Fitzpatrick starting tells me about this Dolphins team is because I love watching him when he was leading the teams. It was great, to see the Fitzmagic coming out, but this isn't the team that needs Fitzmagic. This is a team that needs to see if the guy that they just traded for this offseason, Josh Rosen, is capable of being their quarterback for the future. So when they have that top 3, top 4 draft pick in the 2020 draft, they don't spend it on a duplicate. That would also be awful for a guy like Rosen to have gone through if the Dolphins end up picking first and they end up having to trade him away again to draft another quarterback number 1 overall. But what Fitzpatrick starting tells me is that the Dolphins don't have confidence in their offensive line to keep Josh Rosen alive because you don't feed your young quarterback who might be like the one piece on this team they're keeping long-term. You don't feed him to the wolves if you don't think you've got a fence around him, even a little bit, even like a little chain link or a little 3-foot-high wooden, some pickets. But because otherwise there's no reason to start Fitzpatrick. You're not a team that's going to be winning. You might as well see what you've got. But the only thing I could see is that they don't even have confidence in their offensive line to be able to protect their young quarterback.
They just traded their best offensive lineman. Like, come on now. They don't want to destroy Rosen's life before it gets started. I mean, come on. What is he, 22, 23, something around there, 23? They don't want to ruin the kid's career. But Fitzmagic, he can survive a nuclear fallout. He's like a cockroach.
But what does that mean? They're just going to keep him on the sidelines all year? Because it's not like the O-line's going to get better from here on, later in the season, is it?
This is their way of saying – well, we're competing. We got our best quarterback out there, our veteran to lead the team. After 3 or 4 losses by blowouts, Rosen will be in. The season's over. Everybody will be looking to 2020 and looking at Justin Herbert and other top quarterbacks in college.
Yeah, I don't that's got to be what it is. It's just to throw that front to try to sell some extra tickets. And then, when it's obviously, even more obviously done, just then, pull the ripcord, take him out. Be like, oh, he just, he didn't live up to potential. It's like, no, you traded away his best blockers. You traded away the defense. He traded away anyway. It's I've been a Dolphins fan for my whole life. I went to my first game in '94 down at what was then Joe Robbie Stadium, and I've seen a lot of pieces traded away. I saw Wes Welker. I saw other players traded away, dealt away, dumped off. This is uniquely bad. This team. This is something that this franchise needed to do about 15 years ago when they were bad enough to not make the playoffs, but too good to draft well. They were too good to draft in the top 10. So maybe they're just trying to resurrect that. And they said, what we can't do is we can't be the late aughts Miami Dolphins, where we're consistently between 6-10 and 8-8, and not drafting a franchise player and not competing for a playoff spot. So why not put up, field a practice squad team? Let's see what happens, and then hope that you draft well. Let's go on the final early game before I get really angry at things. The Philadelphia Eagles, 10-point favorites against in-division foes Washington. Will Washington be able to pull the upset at the Link on Sunday, Taylor?
No, Trent Williams is going to miss the game. His holdout's continuing. The offensive line is going to be horrible as a result. Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham, et cetera, are going to be living in the backfield. This looks like an easy one for Philly, so I'll take the Eagles.
First of all, who's playing quarterback? Case Keenum, the professional journeyman? I'd rather have Fitzpatrick. Second of all, who's Keenum going to throw the ball to? Chris Thompson out of the backfield? Can anybody name one good receiver they have on their team? They just cut Doxson, who's the only guy people even knew about. Like Jordan Reed, he can't even stay off the IR. He misses more games than he plays. This team has very little talent on both sides of the ball. They're all NFL players, but when you compare them to other good teams, if you compare them to Philly, it's no match. Double-digit spread. I'm surprised it's not higher right now. Philly's coming in. Wentz is healthy. Alshon Jeffrey's back and healthy. They got Jordan Howard and my boy out of Penn State, Miles Sanders, in the backfield. Ertz is going to come back and tear it up. This Philly team, watch out. I think they're going to be an explosive team this year. They beat Chicago last year. The only difference is now they got a better running game and a healthy Wentz. I think they can contend in the NFC. They're going to blow – there's no chance Washington has this week. They're going to blow them out.
Yeah, fly, Eagles, fly. Road to victory. It starts with Washington. 10 points is generous to say that that's where they'll be within. This Eagles team, yeah, I agree. The Cowboys are lucky that Zeke re-signed because that's what's going to keep them competitive with the Eagles in the division. I still think this is the Eagles' division to win or to lose. But, yeah, they're 1-0 after this week. I cannot see Washington pulling an upset in Philly. If this game was in D.C., you'd have like that 5% chance, just on the off chance that the fans got to the Eagles. But the Eagles play at home in Philadelphia. I don't even think road games would face them. It's probably a calm, more pleasant experience outside of Philadelphia. And they're just, but when they're playing in front of their fans, geez, they're not losing to Washington.
They're a home and road team in front of their own fans.
Exactly, depending on the scoreboard.
Yeah.
But this one, I think they're going to be a home team in front of their fans, and I don't really think there's much doubt about it.
Washington would have a better chance if they had Santa on their team.
Well, they'd at least get a bunch of unsportsmanlike conduct penalties against the Phillies, or the Eagles, because the Phillies fans would just start pelting the team with batteries. So, you do have a point there. Playing 11 Santas on the field would give the Washington Redskins a better shot against the Eagles than fielding their 22-man starting lineup. Moving on to the late afternoon games for Sunday, we've got 5 of these contests this week. And again, we're going to start with the game with the tightest spreads and work our way up to the largest spreads. Doesn't come any closer than this. A toss-up game. Tampa Bay Buccaneers hosting the San Francisco 49ers. There is no spread to speak of, 0 points. So, Rick, which team picks up the win in this contest?
Because it's at Tampa, I'm going to side with the Bucs here. Jimmy G did not look consistently good in the preseason. One game he looked terrible. Another game he looked okay. I need to see more out of him for 4 whole quarters in a game that matters. They can't decide on the backfield. They got rookie receivers throwing to. Kittle's a stud at tight end. I don't know how well the defense is going to be. They got good players up front. Is the back end going to be able to contend with Tampa's offense? Now, last year, Taylor remembered this. I thought Tampa was going to be the worst team in the league. Well, they weren't the worst team in the league. They were one of them, but they weren't the worst team in the league. Arizona just blew everybody away with how bad they played. With that said, this year I have a little bit higher expectations for Tampa. I like Bruce Arians. I like his offense. I think that offense, as long as Jameis Winston does not turn the ball over as much as he has in the past, the running game should be at least average. They tried to improve the O-line, but it's the receivers. Evans and Godwin are going to be studs. It's going to be one of the best duos in the league by the time the season's done. I have confidence in both of them. I've been trying to snag Godwin on my fantasy teams. He's going to be a stud. Yes, he played at Penn State. On defense, they've improved the defense. I love their linebacker, White, from LSU. I think he can be a stud this year. I thought he could contend for the Defensive Rookie of the Year also. Even though I'm leaning towards Bush in that one, I think White's going to be a beast. I like Tampa at home. It's a pick 'em. You're going to get value on either side. I'm going with Tampa. West Coast, East Coast. That should play into Taylor's argument, and I'm setting them up right now.
Yeah, I'm taking Tampa Bay too, but it's not because I like Tampa Bay. It's more because that just feels like the default safer pick. Jimmy G, I think, will be pretty good this season, but first game back, like you said, could be a little bit of rust there. Tampa Bay does look improved. I think they're still going to finish in last just because that division's brutal, but week 1 against San Francisco is a nice matchup for them. I think Tampa Bay gets the win.
I'm taking the Bucs also. They started the year last year 2-0. They beat San Francisco 27-9 in Tampa in late November. Jameis Winston was suspended for the first 3 games last year. So in addition to not turning the ball over, he's also got to not do something to get himself suspended again if Tampa's going to be better this year. They've won back-to-back season opening games that Jameis started plus last year's game. So 3 straight seasons they've started off 1-0. So I think Tampa is the more safe pick, I guess, in this case. The default pick. I was trying to use a different term than what Taylor just used because I was basically thinking the same thing. But, yeah, I'm going to make it unanimous, just make that Tampa to win that game. Arizona Cardinals were the worst team in the NFL last season, drafted Kyler Murray number 1 overall in the 2019 NFL Draft. In Week 1, the Cards host the prolifically pitiful Detroit Lions. Detroit actually enters Week 1 as the betting favorites here. They're favored by 2.5 points. Taylor, which team will get their fan base's hopes up with a Week 1 win?
I think it's kind of like the other game. It's kind of just a default pick. I think it's the Lions. They just have more talent, all things considered, even though it's still a bad team. Matthew Stafford's an okay quarterback. He has decent weapons with Kenny Golladay and Marvin Jones. Danny Amendola's there now. Kerryon Johnson, I think, is primed for a pretty good season out of the backfield. Rookie quarterback on the other side in his first game. I think Kyler Murray's going to be decent. I think he might pile up a lot of garbage time stats, which makes him a decent fantasy commodity, I'm hoping. But Arizona's horrible. They're probably the worst team in the NFL other than Miami. So I don't like it, but I'm taking Detroit.
First of all, garbage time, fantasy, David Johnson's demand for that. With that said, this is a tough game. For me, this was the hardest game to pick because I do think Arizona is going to play better than what we've seen in the preseason. I think they held back a little bit because this is an offense that not a lot of people have a lot of tape on in terms of the players that are in it right now. They might understand what Kingsbury's done in college, but when you get into the pros and got to modify it some and then you adapt it to the talent that they have, I'm not ready to say that Arizona is going to be a winning team this year. They will be a competitive team this year, way more than last season. Now to get to the Lions. Here's the thing. I watched him play in the preseason. When Stafford played, he looked great. That offense is going to be much better than it's been since Calvin Johnson retired. Kerryon Johnson's going to be a stud running back. Then you go to the 3 receivers, but then the rookie tight end, TJ Hawkinson out of Iowa, Mackey Award winner last year, he's a stud. He has the potential to be a game changer in that offense. Defensively, that's where the question marks lie. They might have to win more games, outscoring other teams, which means they could be a 500 team basically. This weekend, though, I think they'll go on the road. I think they're going to win the game. However, I would not be surprised if Arizona gets revenge because, remember, it was David Johnson hurt his wrist and threw his whole career off trajectory in the first game of the 2017 season against Detroit. So he might get revenge, go for 400 total yards and 5 touchdowns, and single-handedly win the game and probably play better quarterback than Kyler Murray. We don't know.
So I had marked down the Cardinals as my pick, and then I heard Rick say that he was not quite ready to say they were going to be a winning team this year. And now I'm panicking about making that selection because there's no way Arizona gets to sniffs 8 wins this year. And they'd have to get to 9 to be a winning team. So the 7 to 8 range is, I mean, unless they're playing Detroit 16 times, in which case then, yes, 7 or 8 is about right. But yeah, these are 2 of the worst teams in the NFC. No matter what improvements Detroit made, they're still the 4th best team in that division. No matter what improvements the Cardinals made, which weren't a lot, they are still the 4th, barring a San Francisco collapse, best team in their division. They are both the worst in their respective divisions in the NFC. I'd ignore this game entirely, but I'm just because I had marked it down, I'll just stick with the Cardinals, even though hearing that Rick suggests they might be 8-8 makes me think I've overvalued them because there's no way that they get to that point. And maybe subconsciously that thought had gone through my head and led me to picking the Cardinals over the Lions. But whatever, too late now. I've said it on camera. If you managed to find a betting line for this game before last weekend's news, I hope that you bet on the LA side of things. The Chargers are now 6.5-point favorites at home against the Jacoby Brissett-led Indianapolis Colts for week 1. Rick, are you betting on the Bolts or are you betting on the Colts? Is Brissett going to find some hidden luck from within to overtake the LA Chargers?
Have we got a spread for this game yet?
6.5 points. That's all it is right now.
That's it?
That's it.
Wow.
Can't imagine what it must have been a week ago before Luck retired.
I'm a bit surprised here. You know, I've tossed and turned over this a little bit. Brissett's not a bum quarterback, okay? He's good enough to not lose games. So what do we call that? A manager. He can be a game manager. If you think about the dynamics and the components that the Colts have, the reason they were picked to be a contender in the AFC, or at the very least win the division, it was Luck, obviously, but not just him himself. They had a lot of talent around him. They're going to have a good running game. They're going to have one of the best offensive lines in the entire NFL, not to mention just in the AFC alone. They have solid receivers, solid tight ends, and then defensively, that defense played so much better last year. They had the defensive rookie of the year from last year. His name's slipped my mind right now. He's a stud linebacker, middle linebacker. They got improved all over the place with Frank Reich there. They can be a good team still. I don't think they're going to be as bad as some people are claiming they're going to be. They're surely not going to be at the depths of the Dolphins, okay? They might be 6-10 to 8-8 range because they don't have a quarterback that can win the game. But with that said, the Chargers' offensive line looked horrible in the preseason. They're missing one of their key players on defense. It's not like they're going to come out and light it up just because, you know, they've done it in the past. And let's not forget that the Chargers are notoriously slow at starting the season. They've just been bad at the beginning of the season the last several years. They pick it up later in the year. I wish that spread was at least a touchdown because then I would say take the spread for the Colts. Since we're just doing the outright right now, you have to take the Chargers at home until you can see what the Colts can do. But don't sleep on Brissett. He's not a terrible quarterback. He can win the game in terms of managing it, not turn it over, and he can run the ball if he needs to. I think the Colts are going to be competitive. They're certainly better than Arizona and Detroit.
They're better than Arizona and Detroit, but I think they're still quite a bit worse than the Chargers right now, even without Melvin Gordon and Derwin James. We've talked about this before. I don't think they're going to really lose much without Gordon, however long he's gone. I think Eckler and Jackson are pretty good backups to have. Hunter Henry's back now, which is kind of an underrated thing with that offense. That's a good pass catcher that Phillip Rivers can use. Antonio Gates is gone now, it seems. So I just think that Lions a little bit fishy to me. I would take the Chargers against the spread, but the fact that it is so close despite Andrew Luck being gone is kind of confusing. So it makes me kind of wonder if the Chargers are just being overvalued somehow. But, you know, you got to take the Chargers at home, even though they don't really have a home field advantage. They play in a soccer stadium that attracts thousands of road fans per game. They're basically playing 16 road games a year out there, but the talent wins out, I think, and Chargers have the talent edge. So give me LA.
Yeah, I mean, it's slightly more of a home field advantage than if they try to play a game in San Diego again after what they did. But I would go with the Chargers again in this one. I don't think Brissett is a bad quarterback necessarily. I would hope for the Colts' sake he's not. They just signed him to a 2-year extension. But, I mean, he's not Andrew Luck. And if Andrew Luck was starting for the Colts, this game would be, I think, a lot more competitive. I would then maybe consider a bet on the Colts at the very least with an extra, maybe 2-3 points on the spread kind of thing. But without him there, for week one, I can't see Brissett being the guy. I need a track record of his before I'm going to bet on him. So I'm taking the Chargers to pick up the win in this game. We got another matchup of NFC East rivals, another big favorite in this game. We already talked about Philadelphia's game against Washington. And Ezekiel Elliott has just signed a new contract the same day as this recording, in fact, with the Dallas Cowboys. But that didn't impact the spread for their game, by the way. The boys still 7-point favorites to win at home against the New York Football Giants on Sunday. Taylor, any reason to think the G-Men can upset them Cowboys now that Zeke's back?
No, the Giants have gone into Arlington and won a lot of games in the past, but that was back when they were good. They are no longer good. The Cowboys, on the other hand, are very good. I think we'll see Zeke. I imagine we'll see plenty of Tony Pollard this week as well, but I doubt it matters. Dak Prescott's better than Eli Manning at this stage of their respective careers. Dallas has the defensive edge, which you haven't said very often in this matchup over the years, but that's the case these days. They're at home. Again, not a huge home field advantage for Dallas in that building, but the Giants are among the worst teams in the NFC, and the Cowboys are among the best. So I think this one's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I have to agree with my esteemed colleague here. I will say this, though. I do think my boy Saquon Barkley is going to outperform Zeke and Pollard combined. However, do the Giants even have a defense? I mean, they had a bad defense last year. Did they add anybody to the defense in the offseason? Offensively, they had one of the worst offensive lines, and Barkley still was a beast, still led the league in all scrimmage yards and was second in rushing. If he can do that on a bad team, imagine what he can do on a team that has any kind of capable blocking and Manning, who's not, throwing the ball away or running for his life. If that offensive line can play above average or at the least average, since they were terrible last year, this game's going to be closer than what people think, because I watched the preseason games. They want to get the ball out. They want to be a more up-tempo, explosive offense, score more points. Evan Ingram can have a big season for the tight end position. Receivers, they don't have Beckham, but you know what? Beckham's missed a lot of games. He's been a drama queen for them. He's distracted them many times. He did a lot for them, but he also was a pain in the butt for the Giants. Let's be honest here. This team runs through Saquon Barkley. If they can block, if they get him the ball out of the backfield, they can be competitive. I'm taking Dallas to win, but I'm not ready to say the Giants are going to get blown out this week. I think they're going to keep it close until late in the fourth quarter. Dallas will win the game.
I think the Giants are going to get blown out this week. This is a 2-team division. Will be for at least another year, probably 2. But the Cowboys are going to win. The Eagles are going to win. I don't think that, aside from the fact that they're both rivalry games, I don't really know if there's going to be all that much excitement involved in either. It'll be nice to see guys back in a game that matters, but this is a game the Cowboys, if they don't win this game, the Eagles are going to win the division by 3 games. That's really what it comes down to. The Cowboys are winning this. The Giants are not good anymore. They will work their way back up. They've got some young pieces, but those young pieces aren't ready yet. Their young running back might be ready. Their young quarterback's not ready yet. That's where the Giants might actually be able to turn around, but it's going to be a year. They're going to need the offensive line retool. They're going to have that quarterback get some experience, get in there. They're going to hope that Daniel Jones is worth the draft pick they spent on him and see what happens. Maybe if they do that, the Giants will be, aside from a couple of down years, to go from Eli Manning to another potential franchise quarterback. There aren't many teams that do that. The Colts managed to do it with going from Manning to Luck. The Packers managed to do it going from Favre to Rodgers. The Patriots, you could say, did it going from Bledsoe to Brady. But there aren't a lot of teams that can do that. So it'll be interesting to see for the G-men down the line, not on Sunday. Final afternoon game, Seattle Seahawks hosting the Cincinnati Bengals. That Seattle defense got a nice little boost this week, courtesy of Taylor's Houston Texans. Rick, can the Bengals overcome a 9.5-point spread to topple the Seahawks this week?
Absolutely not. Okay, first of all, there's been two teams I have literally rooted for my entire life: Seahawks and the Bills. My dad's from the Northwest. My mom's from Buffalo. That's how I became fans of each team. With that said, I have followed every move Seattle's made this offseason. Adding Clowney to this team is bringing back an elite defense to Seattle. They're going to put so much pressure on the quarterback. They have one of the best linebackers in Wagner. Their secondary played great last year, considering a lot of unknowns going into the season, as they didn't have the names that we're accustomed to seeing with the Legion of Boom. Offensively, here's the big difference. They improved the offensive line. Russell Wilson did not have a lot of time to throw last year. He scrambled a lot. Even though they've lost Baldwin, Tyler Lockett was almost a 1,000-yard receiver last year. Nobody knows about it. I think he had 10 touchdowns, 9 or 10 touchdowns around there last season. They've added more receivers, young receivers, talented athletic receivers. The line, that's the key, has improved. Number one rush team last year. You don't win in Seattle unless you have a great defense and or a great offense. Cincinnati doesn't have either. Okay, I like Mixon. I think he can be a stud. I love the Bengals for how they got my Bills into the playoffs 2 years ago, but there's no chance they win this game. The only way they win this game is if Russell Wilson breaks his leg and Geno Smith has to go in there. That's it. There's no way.
Did you say it's a 9.5-point spread?
9.5.
That seems low to me. I think I would take Seattle to cover that. Still one of the best home field advantages in football. The Bengals are absolutely horrible. I think the highlight for Cincinnati is they have a starting left guard named Michael Jordan. So if he becomes the greatest of all time, maybe they have a chance. But I don't see it happening. Seattle, it's not a team I love in general. Just their offensive talent, I think, is lacking. But the defense should be able to make up for it this week. Cincinnati's terrible. I don't see any way the Bengals can win this game.
Yeah, Seattle wins. That's easy. I would agree with Taylor. I think that spread's kind of short. It's one of the biggest spreads this week for week 1 of the NFL. I think that the Eagles spread might be the only one that is larger than that, just glancing ahead, looking at the Sunday night game and the Monday night game. Yeah, nope. This is the second largest spread of the week. So it's just that the NFL doesn't quite have the same point spreads as college does. But, yeah, this could be a multi-touchdown win for the Seahawks. It should be. If, acquiring Clowney, I think, puts them in the contention to be a team that might try to unseat the Rams if they do stumble this year. I think that Seattle adding Clowney, I think that puts them in the mix. They've got that defense. They do still have a couple of pieces on offense. It's not they're not.
Wilson's going to be an MVP candidate.
Yeah.
Well, write it down now.
I will.
They were a playoff team last year. Improved offensive line. His numbers are going to be even better. He had the second best QB rating last season. He's going to be a stud.
Yeah.
AJ Green's also still in a walking boot, so that doesn't help.
Yeah, that still hurts my dynasty fantasy team too. So not really happy about that. But I'd pick Seattle to win this game. Let's get to the Sunday night football game. One of the better rivalries of the last 2 decades or so in the AFC. The reigning Super Bowl champion New England Patriots hosting the Pittsburgh Steelers. Pats, 5.5-point favorites to open the year with a W in Foxborough. Any chance that the Steelers might pick up a win here, Taylor?
There's a chance. It's a rivalry kind of game. Anything can happen prime time. The Patriots have been known to kind of screw around in the early part of the season before turning it on. But home game, first game after winning another Super Bowl. Pittsburgh's down Antonio Brown. I don't think Roethlisberger is going to lead the league in passing like he did last season. I think he's kind of going to start to show his age a little bit, whereas Tom Brady apparently will never do that. So don't pick against the Patriots. It's probably just a good rule of thumb to follow.
Yeah, I like Steelers getting 5.5 points. I think it's going to be closer than that. But the Patriots at home, they've been very difficult to beat. I can't even – what are they? They lost a couple games at home last year, but over the last couple seasons, they're one of the best home football teams in the entire NFL. They might – and like Taylor was alluding to, there's been times they come out sluggish to start the season. Then they make a few adjustments. Before you know it, they're leading the AFC in winning percentage and every other statistical category. This week, the Steelers have a shot because the Patriots start off sluggish. Not only that, the Patriots' offensive line took a hit when their center got put on IR with his health issues. They don't have the same strong offensive line that they've had in the last couple of years. Receivers without Gronk, like who's going to go over the middle of the field and open that up, or even the blocking from the tight end position. Like there's a lot more concerns I have for this offense. Defensively, please name more than 2 starters on the Patriots defense. Like they don't have big names anymore on defense like they've had over the last couple of years. The more I think about it, the more I do think that Pittsburgh has a shot at winning the game outright. I'm going to take Pittsburgh with the points, but I'm going to side with the Patriots at home to pull it out late in the game because of their kicker, Gostkowski.
I mean, again, with the kicker, how do I go against that? I was going to pick New England anyway, but that's a good enough reason for me. The all-time series between these two franchises, whether it's in Pittsburgh, Foxborough, or anywhere, is 16-16. The teams are even. Since Tom Brady was drafted in 2000, the Patriots have won 5 out of 6 against the Steelers in Foxborough. So it's a 16-16 all-time series. But with Tom Brady on a roster for New England, in New England, it's 5-1 for the Patriots. The Pats should win this game. I would never bet against the Patriots, except I would put a small flyer on the Dolphins in both of those games every year because you never know when a Miami Miracle is going to happen or the Wildcat is going to debut or anything like that. That's the only team that I would ever consider even a small wager against the Patriots during the regular season because they're the only team that you could say consistently shows up where if you bet on them enough times, one time it'll pay off. And if you're betting $5 at a time, you'll eventually get your money back at the very least. One of my favorite features of the NFL's Week 1 is the Monday Night Football doubleheader. First game kicks off at 7:10 p.m. Eastern Time as the Houston Texans visit New Orleans Saints. I know Taylor's excited about this game. Saints favored by 7 at the Superdome, or Silverdome if you're Hulk Hogan. Rick, are you going to pick against Taylor's Texans, brother?
Yes, brother. I'm going with the Saints here at home. Houston has question marks in the running game. That passing offense should be, one of the top, at least in the conference, top 5 conference, top 5 in the NFL. I like Watson, Hopkins, Fuller. I think they're going to be an amazing trio this season. However, with that said, the running game, come on now, Duke Johnson, Carlos Hyde, that's not sending you're not making the Saints defense shiver or quiver at all. Saints side of the ball, they're loaded on offense. They've added some pieces on defense. I know Breeze is getting a little long in the tooth, but Kamara is one of the best all-around running backs in the NFL. The offense runs through him. Houston doesn't have the same defense as they used to, especially without Clowney. Everything is lining up for the Saints to win this game. They're going to have a party in Nolens after they win. 7 points is a lot, but you know what? I think it's going to be high scoring, and I think, the Saints are just going to pull away in the end. I'm going to pick them to win by close to 10 points.
Should be a fun game to watch. Like you were saying, a couple of potentially high-octane offenses, a lot of big play potential on both sides. But Saints at home, this tends to be one of those no-brainer type things. Texans, I think, based on my experience watching my team over the years, pretty sure they've never won a primetime game in history that didn't come against Jacksonville or Tennessee. So I don't really like their chances of going on the road into New Orleans in week 1. So as much as I am pained to pick against Houston, I must do the smart thing, and that's not picking Houston.
Yeah, I'm picking the Saints as well. I think they're a great team. We saw that a year ago they were nearly a Super Bowl team. I think they're one of the better teams in the NFC again this year. They've got just incredible talent. One thing I do want to bring up, because it was reminded when you mentioned Drew Brees, that going back to our Giants conversation, the Chargers did a great job of going from one franchise QB to the next because they went from Drew Brees to Phillip Rivers. Just to get that out of the way in case we've got Chargers fans watching that are going to write in the comments like, you forgot we had Drew Brees and that kind of thing. So, yeah, nope, they were added to that list too. I don't think you could count Aaron Brooks to Drew Brees as a thing for the Saints, though. But, yeah, I think New Orleans picks up the win in this game. It should be a fun one to watch with the offenses that these teams got. And I'm curious to see what Houston does over the course of the season, especially with Andrew Luck retiring, as we've talked ad nauseum at this point. I think that they're one of the more interesting teams to watch this year to see if they can capitalize on a division that got a little bit weaker really close to the start of the season. Final game of week 1, game number 16, will not be kicking off until 10:20 p.m. Eastern time, or 7:20 p.m. if you're watching on the West Coast. But it does feature the classic rivalry matchup of the Denver Broncos and the Oakland Raiders. Barring an unlikely postseason clash, this will be the final time the Raiders and Broncos face off in Oakland, since the Raiders are relocating to Las Vegas after the season. Allegiant Stadium going up, the progress being made there. The Silver and Black may be the home team, but there is a 0-point spread for this game now. It was a 1-point spread until today. Don't really know what happened, but it's now a toss-up game. So, Taylor, you taking Chucky's Raiders to beat the Broncos at home in their final game against Denver in Oakland, or are the Broncos going to pick up the road win?
I think it's pretty safe to say we won't be getting a playoff matchup of these two teams in Oakland or anywhere. So probably the last time they'll face off in Oakland. But I'm taking the Raiders. It's another of those toss-up games. It's another home field advantage kind of thing. It's kind of an awkward home field advantage since it's not going to be their home field for very long. But Raider fans are Raider fans. Antonio Brown is a huge addition, of course. I think Josh Jacobs is a nice running back upgrade from the old Marshawn Lynch. Hunter Renfrow coming over from the Padres to start for the Raiders now. So I like what they've done this offseason, considering they're the Raiders. The bar is pretty low to begin with. I don't think Joe Flacco is going to really save Denver. It wouldn't shock me, of course, if the Raiders lost because that's what they do, but I'll just side with Oakland at home.
Yeah, this is a tough pick. If it was in Denver, we all would probably pick Denver. But since it's in Oakland, Denver going on the road, Joe Flacco hasn't been lighting up the scoreboards over the last couple of years. He does have some good pieces on offense, but that offensive line is questionable at best. The Raiders, though, they've added pieces on both sides of the ball. They've added a ton of playmakers on the offense. Waller at tight end could be a sleeper for fantasy teams. Jacobs in the backfield. They still have other pieces back there also. That offensive line is big and nasty. But Antonio Brown could be the key here. If he's drawing double teams, if he's getting 10 throws at targets a game, like he changes the dynamic of an offense. He makes defenses have to double cover him, shift to his side, whatever. That can open the field for Williams and Jacobs and Waller and stuff. If Carr can have a clean pocket, he will have a big game. Denver's going to have a great pass rush like they do with Von Miller and his running mate. It slips my mind right now, the other guy I'm trying to think of. Chubb?
Yeah.
Chubb? Okay. With that said, I'm not sure about Denver's secondary. I don't know if they can shut down Antonio Brown. I don't know how their running game or their rush defense is going to fare on the road. I think Gruden and the Raiders deserve a little bit of, just some luck, deserve some kind of cosmic, leverage on their side or something just to go in their favor for just once. Let them start off a season on a happy note. You already know there's going to be fights in the stadium and outside of the stadium and everywhere else. People aren't even going to watch the game or enjoy it. You got to go with Oakland here. I'm hoping they win just because I want to see Chucky get a good victory, celebrate, pump his fist, facial expressions. And then I want to see Frank Caliendo the next day mimicking John Gruden. And above all else, I'm a big fan of Mike Mayock. I loved him on the NFL Network. He's an amazing draft analyst, great commentator. I think he's done a great job in the front office as John Gruden's general manager. I'm going with the Raiders at home. I just think it'll be cool to see them to win. Give the Raiders fans something to celebrate, even though they're going to be drunk and fighting. Just have a good time in Oakland. I mean, come on, Oakland. Where is the love? Come on, okay? Just for one night. One night.
I just wonder if the Coliseum is going to survive the season. If by like an hour after the final home game of the year, if that thing's going to still be standing and fully intact for when the A's get back for another season in the spring. But I'm going to go against the grain here. I'm going to pick the Broncos, and I got a couple of numbers for you when it comes to Joe Flacco. All right? Joe Flacco is 4-2 in his career against the Raiders. He's thrown for 7 touchdowns, rushed for 3 more, and only 2 interceptions in those 6 games. His teams have never been held to under 21 points in a game against Oakland, whether they've won or lost. They've scored at least 21. Oakland's added some pieces, but after watching what happened last year with them, I wouldn't feel comfortable making a pick on them. So I'm just going with Denver in this case. It'll be interesting to see. Fan cams will be interesting to see on Twitter after this game is over and during the game, and see how many things are trending for this game that have nothing to do with the football being played on the field. But I'm going to pick Denver, see what happens. It'll be interesting to see what Oakland does in their final season in Oakland. And I do agree that this fan base travels so much, and they've been moved around so many times too, up and down California, that Raiders fans are just – I don't even think they're going to be bothered by the fact that the team's going to be playing in Vegas. They might be looking forward to it.
Yeah, they get road trips to Vegas. I'm sure they're fine with it.
Nicer stadium. Same amount of fighting.
I mean, there's a field next to where I live. That's a nicer stadium than the Oakland Coliseum. I mean, I went to a San Francisco Giants game, and I flew into Oakland a couple of months ago, and I just remember seeing we took the tram past the Oakland Coliseum. I'd gone there 15 years ago and remembered how bad it was, and it looks worse. It's remarkable that thing has survived. It has outlasted everything. That is the most resilient sports anything like ever. That is the most resilient sports icon, I think, is the Oakland Coliseum. The fact that thing has survived for 7 years after the whole sewage backup into the Oakland A's dugout, and everything that's happened with the earthquakes that have happened, everything that's gone on, the fact that thing is still standing and operating, the Oakland Coliseum deserves a little applause for just for surviving and being able to host professional sporting events.
Hey, it's the Fitzpatrick of venues.
There is some call magic. I don't really know if that would – you can't really do that. It doesn't work as well as with Fitzpatrick, but we'll come up with something like that. Let us know what you think that would be in the comments down below. That's going to do it for this special edition of the Odds On Favorites podcast. If you like this version of the podcast, let us know in the comments below. Make sure to check out gamblingsites.org for more from these guys right here. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and check back next week for another edition of the podcast on the Odds On Favorites YouTube channel. They've been Rick Rockwell and Taylor Smith. I'm Drew Goldfarb. Thank you so much for watching. Enjoy week 1 of the NFL. We'll see you next time.